You are.
We're so good at this.
You're nailing it.
We're so good at this. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about the Cambridge Audio EXA 100 review.
Oh, okay.
That's hello. Hello, everybody. This is Unplugged 28, where Andrew doesn't know what we're talking about.
It very rarely happens, but yeah, I there's been a lot going on in the last week. I got confused. I actually forgot we dropped this review on Sunday. Oops.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
I'm
Thankfully, other people didn't forget and they actually watched it. So
yeah.
That's a win for humanity. So yeah, we're talking about the Cambridge.
Okay.
Actually, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not surprised that you really weren't sure what we're talking about because there were so many references of the previous review, the ONKYO RZ30.
Yeah.
It seems like the separates versus an AVR debate
Carried over.
Yeah, kind of carried over.
I kind of thought it would.
Thompson Varghese says, why do we need this when we got the super cheap Onkyo TX RZ30 from last week? What does this do that the Onkyo doesn't? And then Konstantinos says, the way I see it, manufacturers of integrated amps that omit important features, for example, bass management, room correction, phono preamp, etc., are actually promoting separates or the AVR route. They may think they may think that they give people more options, but deliberately miss the sweet spot, which has the opposite effect.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think I get where Konstantinos is going, but it's not like separates, like every separate is going to give you bass management. Sure as heck, they're not going to all give you room correction.
Yeah.
So really, I just think that it kind of pushes people maybe to the argument of getting an AV receiver. It further supports that could be maybe one of the best decisions to make, whether you're talking about home theater or hi-fi.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And I'm sure the Cambridge designers will err on the side of we're trying to give people just enough of the features that they want without making it too complicated like an AVR, because some people might be overwhelmed by an AVR. But this day and age, given, smartphones and tablets and things like that, I think that argument may have held water 20, 30 years ago. I don't think it holds water today. I think today people are much more technology, they're not averse, they're technology savvy, and as a result, they know what's possible. I mean, you can do almost anything in the palm of your hand with a phone nowadays. So this notion that when people approach something, they can't figure it out, or they're unwilling to figure it out, or they don't want a bevy of features, I think it's misguided. I really kind of do. And so in this instance, while I applaud Cambridge for giving people some features that they've been asking for some time with the EXA 100, I do kind of agree that maybe they have missed a little bit more of a sweet spot, or they haven't gone far enough to compete with the likes of something like an ONKYO RZ30, which some people are going to say, and I'm sure Cambridge would even say, we're never going to compete against that. We're not competing against that. Our dealer network, the type of people that shop our products, there's no crossover. Yeah, I don't think that's true anymore, especially with the internet. There's crossover because if I type in Cambridge Audio into Google, I'm not only going to get Cambridge Audio, especially like shopping links and all of that. I'm not only going to get Cambridge Audio, I'm going to get everything that's within a stone's throw of their price, and that includes AVRs. And when that happens, it's going to be left to the value proposition in the customer's eyes and budget. Like, what am I getting for my money? And when you look at stuff like the RC30 especially, you're getting a lot. You're getting an awful lot. And when you're trying to compare and contrast that, you're going to, I don't want to say you're going to lose if you're a Cambridge or someone that makes an integrated, but you've got an uphill battle, And I think you even have an uphill battle amongst the people that, quote, know better. Because this day and age, even the people that quote, know better, as in, the amplifier section in an integrated is going to be a little bit better than, say, what's in an AVR. Even those people are starting to kind of shift in their thinking and kind of go with, well, it's not the good enough argument. It's the, some of these old adages and tropes are actually just that. They're kind of old because technology has really brought about a sea change in what's possible at a lower price point.
Well, speaking of tropes, Moco Mike, aka Mike V, he took the words right out of my mouth. He left a comment that said, "Wait, didn't Cambridge say their customers weren't interested in HDMI ARC?" Yeah, funny. That is funny, Mike, because they did say that.
Oh, they said it, and they said it with their whole chest. And they said it to us, and we included it as a quote. This year, they kicked off January with a bang. They yeah.
Well, they pulled like 2,000 people or something. Like, it was a pretty small sample size. And, those 5 randos that are like, you'll take my separates out of my cold dead hands, told them,
we don't
want that. And I'm I can only imagine how difficult it can be as a brand to attempt to embrace change while also not alienating your core audience. But also knowing, like, I need to embrace this change if I'm going to be here next year.
Yeah.
So I understand. I did. Mike's comment made me laugh.
Oh, it's hilarious.
And I'm sure Cambridge is probably watching this right now going,
They're that Homer Simpson meme where they're just
where he recedes into the bushes. The hedge. Yeah. Oh, for sure. I
saw, now that you've read the comment out loud, I saw that comment, and to put it, I needed a couple days, not a couple days, I needed like a day to get it out of my system to kind of come down from my frustration with Cambridge, because the EXA 100 is the product they needed to make, and they should have made from jump instead of some of the other releases they've decided to bring to market this year. If I were a CXA customer right now, I think you have reason to be frustrated with Cambridge, especially with the launch of the EXA, because the CXA 81 Mark II was almost nothing burger of a release, and the people that may have jumped aboard and gotten that to then 2-3 months later be presented with the EXA 100, which is a demonstrably better, different, more flexible product, it angered me. And I'm just a reviewer. I'm not a Cambridge customer. I'm just telling you like it is. But going back to Mike's comment, to know how strongly Cambridge in January of this year was, HDMI is not something people want. They don't want all of these features in products. They want sound quality, and that's why we're doing the CXA 100, and that's why we're going to do the CXA 81 Mark II this way. Then by end of Q3 to be like, surprise, we're actually doing all the things we said we were never going to do. And it's like, I don't know how, as a fan or an enthusiast, you can't look at that and be like, are you kidding? Are you kidding me? Because as a reviewer, I was like, 'Cause, I mean, I felt a little bit misled, by them a little bit there. Because it's not like these products just poof appeared. They've been in the works this whole time.
Well, I was just thinking that,
Yeah.
while you were going through your steps of grief.
Acceptance.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Going back to what Cambridge told us after polling some of their customers, that they didn't want this, but then they came out with the EXA, and if you just go by general manufacturing time frames,
Yeah.
this was probably in the works, at least a year ago.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just add a minimum a year ago.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, why didn't you just, I guess, well, I was just going to say, why didn't you just tell us that this other thing was coming? But then,
Yeah. Then no one buys the CXN 100
but they can't do that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's frustrating.
Is frustrating.
It's very frustrating.
You weren't the only one who was frustrated. Frustrated. I might start including this into all of our unplugs. This section is going to be called Viewer Rants.
Okay. I like this. I like this, but it's going to make us even less popular with the brands.
Oh boy. Okay, so Linux Lucy.
Okay.
I can't believe that they use the same crappy display and buttons from the CXA range. Not to mention those good for the eyes, blue lights and LEDs. Arg. Again, where are the tone controls? And the DAC upgrade? No thanks, Cambridge. Love the MXN 10 streamer. I own one. Other than HDMI and a few extra watts, this is just a CXA 81 in a new case. Sorry, no cigar this time.
He might not be wrong. The more and more I looked at the CXA 81 Mark II, which, as I said in the review, they approached us like, do you want to review it? And I said, nope, I don't think it's an upgrade. But the more I went back and looked at it, the more I'm kind of in agreement with this poster. I'm like, there are some aspects of the build quality on the EXA 100 that are notably a little bit better, a little bit more robust. But between the goalposts, everyday listening, is someone necessarily going to be able to pinpoint some of those differences? Probably not. And so, yes, it included HDMI, but like I say in the review, like, the EXA was the perfect time to put all of the goodies in it so that people had a much clearer picture of what the differences were. Like a phono preamp, where is it? Well,
what I want to know is how many people upgraded their original CXA 81 to the Mark II version. I want to know what they think about the upgrade, and then now seeing the EXA 100 come out.
Yeah.
Sound off in the comments.
Yeah, if you bought a CX81 Mark II, I agree with Christy. I would want to know what you're feeling right now.
But I do want to I think we need to bring up one thing.
Okay.
An error that you made in the review of these products about the DACs.
Oh, I issued a correction.
I know, but I just think you should say it on camera.
Okay, you're right. Yes, I mistakenly word flubbed in the review, and I said that the DAC inside the EXA 100 and the EXN 100 are the same. They're not. The DAC inside the EXA 100 is the same as the DAC inside the CXA 81 Mark II. Not sure if that's better or worse. Maybe it's worse for the EXA 100, but I did mistakenly just jumble my model numbers, and I said that it was the same as the EXN 100. The EXN 100 should be a little bit better, although what I said about their performances, A being the internal DAC and the EXN100 versus the internal DAC and the EXA100, what I said in that review about their similarities and kind of lack of difference still stands, still 100% stands, minus a little variation in gain when using the DAC inside the EXN100 streamer. There is near as makes no difference, at least in our testing in our room on 3 different pairs of speakers, no real perceivable difference in performance.
Okay. Just wanted to give that.
Apologies for any and all confusion. Sorry.
Back to our viewer rants.
Okay.
Mikkel says, I'm a big fan of Cambridge audio design. I've been rocking a CXA81 and CXN V2 combo paired with an Alva TT. They say they love that turntable for a few years now. Initially, I was very interested in upgrading the CXA and CXN to their EX counterparts to get added benefits like HDMI ARC, parentheses, finally, newer generation of Stream Magic, bigger screen, and perhaps even improved sound and build quality. However, the more I think about it, the less it seems to make sense. I'm 100% certain that the EXA 100 and EXN 100 are excellent products on their own, but I don't really understand why Cambridge tries to sell them as a pair. In my opinion, there's just too much redundancy between the two. I'd much rather they had made the EXA an all analog integrated amp and allocated all the digital features to the EXN. I imagine this would have brought the price down or increased the quality of their respective functions. Why do you think they designed these products the way they did? I suspect they want to reach a larger demographic with the EXA 100, since I imagine an analog amplifier without digital inputs has a smaller target audience. But I would love to hear your opinion. By the way, will you be making a separate review for the EXN 100?
Last question first. No, there will not be a separate review of the EXN 100 at all. It's not that it's a bad product. I like it very much. It functions identically to the CXN 100, only it adds HDMI. But other than that, it's a Cambridge streamer. You know, screen's a little bigger. That app still works great. You still have the same limitations you had on the CXN 100 on the new EXN 100, and it costs more. You know, it costs more. Does it sound radically different than the CXN 100? Not really. Not really. We're talking incremental changes and like a little bit of separation, maybe a little bit of clarity. There's definitely a little bit of maybe a gain difference, but gain is easily fixed by just turning the volume up or down to match whatever you had before. So no, I don't feel that there's enough meat on that bone for a whole new review. If I were shopping for a Cambridge streamer at the highest level, as a dedicated streamer DAC solution, I would buy the EXN 100 over the CXN 100 because it just has everything. So it's probably that little bit more future-proof. But if you don't need HDMI or you already own a CXN 100, by no means do I think you need to upgrade. By no means. I'm still very happy with our CXN 100, and I still use it as a reference point. That I'm not even tempted to keep the EXN 100 for long-term evaluation. So that's that question. As for why they managed to pack so much redundancy, I have no clue. I kind of agree with you that an all analog integrated mixed with an all digital streamer DAC solution would have made this combo make a lot more sense, but you are then forcing people into that $4,000 price bracket, whereas you can kind of get them at $2,000 with the EXA 100, so long as they're willing to forego streaming. But the problem with that is they can just as easily go get Cambridge's cheapest streamer at like $399 or whatever it is. You can get one of those with an optical cable into the new EXA 100 amp. And you're kind of good to go, you know? Or if you already have a CXN 100 with a little bit of a, you know, the screen on it. Yeah, the color schemes, the design doesn't match, but you're still going to be cheaper out the door and not have to sacrifice much, if any, performance. So yeah, I don't know. In many ways, because the EXN 100 and CXN 100 to a certain degree can act as a all digital or digital only preamplifier too, like it does have variable volume control that you can set in the app. I'm kind of surprised at this juncture why Cambridge doesn't have a lower end just amplifier. You know, they have the Edge monos, which they advertise as sharing technology with the new EXA, and they have the Edge stereo. Why is there not an EXA stereo amp? Because then if you don't need the analog connections, especially knowing that you have an Alva TT turntable, which has a built-in phono preamp and even can go over Bluetooth with vinyl, don't come at me if you're like, oh my God, it's amazing. You don't know until you've tried it. It makes imminent sense to come to market with a pair of cheaper monos or stereo amp that then gets paired with the EXN 100 as a preamp DAC streamer.
Well, we have a few random questions.
Okay.
Maybe not necessarily tied to this product, but so I wanted to go over those.
Okay.
Shadow Best 3447
All right.
says, Andrew, what are people referring to when they discuss the quote sweet spot of a speaker? And does this apply to both stereo and surrounds?
In my opinion, I can't speak for everybody, but in my travels and in my experience, the sweet spot of a loudspeaker is the relationship between its amplification and SPL in room, where it really kind of feels like it instantly kind of snaps to life. Because a lot of passive speakers at lower volumes can be just sort of meh. You know, you're always listening, kind of going like, when does all this stuff people talk about kind of kick in? And with some speakers, that can be as low as, 56, 60, 65 dB in room. But with some other speakers, it can be as high as like 80, 85 dB in room. With like certain speakers that are like, inefficient, very difficult loads to manage. Sometimes you have to crank those mothers to get them to go like, oh, I get it. Oh, that's cool. But on the flip side, you're like, oh, I can't listen this loud all the time. So that may not be the speaker for you. Whereas other speakers kind of come to life a little bit sooner or have a bit more appreciable sonic contrast sooner. But when you get too loud, then they become like, ooh, So I think that's what people are referring to. At least on this channel, when I say the sweet spot, that's what I'm referring to. Is kind of when everything sort of locks in, and at what point does a product or speaker specifically become more appreciable and enjoyable in the ways that I believe they're being described to customers.
Okay. Well, Konstantinos is back again.
Okay.
Thanks for the review. I hate to dwell on this. I know it comes up all the time.
Yeah.
But am I the only one curious to know how is it that the frequency response does not change, but the low end seems more pronounced? Especially at low frequencies, measurements are pretty accurate in reflecting what we hear. Who cares, you may ask? Too soon, Constantino. We all should, because it may be influenced by the source. For instance, vinyl versus digital, Bluetooth streaming versus built-in streaming, Apple Music versus Tidal, Connect, etc. But hey, if I'm the only one dying to get to the bottom of this, then what do I know?
I think it has a little bit to do with maybe the source, like you're saying, because even within a source, even the same source, like an Apple TV 4K, for example, the app you use and the inherent the inherent quality and file formats that those apps choose to use or require, creators to use when submitting product, or not submitting, but submitting content, whatever that content is, can vary wildly. Like Netflix does not seem to take much to come to life. Whereas Max, the app, you have to run that damn near at your volume at like full tilt just to be like, what? It's just, so it can vary. But I don't think that that's necessarily what you're talking about. Now, you said something in your comment, though, where you're like, measurements are a very accurate way of kind of interpreting what we hear. Frequency response isn't always indicative of how music works, and how music works, how the electronic signal to reproduce music works is much more complex. And I think that's where the differences lie in how we can get the same frequency response from something, but ultimately have a different subjective experience because the amplifier, the product in general, just responds differently to the varying, just chaotic signal that is music.
Okay. Shawnee has a question about power.
Okay.
Shawnee says, Cambridge Audio has never been my go-to brand, but I did invest in the Azur A51A.
Ooh, okay.
Shawnee still has it.
Okay.
And says it's a testament to how good it is. If I'm honest, the sound signature of the ARCAM gets my vote over these two brands. Is it me, or are we seeing manufacturers setting 100 watts per channel as the new norm, which of course means nothing if the power supply is mediocre?
Sure. I mean, look, Cambridge has made some truly iconic products over their history. The Azur line is among them. Those were fantastic products. I'm not surprised that they're still kicking all these years later. As for which 100-watt integrated, gets the vote, Arcam's super competitive sound-wise, and I would argue that I don't have whichever one we had, the SA25 or 35, whichever one we had, Arcam. I don't have that anymore. I went back to Arcam, but I think it might maybe do a little bit better than this EXA 100 on some more difficult to drive speakers. I really do.
But what do you think about the, what he posits to say as that 100 watts per channel is becoming like the go-to power?
I think that the reason for that is speakers are becoming way more complicated lately. I mean, it used to be that speakers were all super efficient because wattage was in the single digits to maybe 10. I mean, back in the day, like way back in the day, like 30 watts was like a beast of an amplifier. But I mean, if ELAC's going to come out with, 84 dB efficient loudspeakers for $399, guess what? People are going to buy those. They're affordable, obtainable, they're easy to appreciate. But that's going to also require an outlay of maybe cash or more power. So I think 75 to 100 watts may actually become the new norm because so many of these loudspeakers, especially even in the more affordable range, they seem to be getting less sensitive with time.
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, honestly, it just seems like does it really matter? I almost said, who cares what the watts per channel rating is, because everybody is going to have a different opinion about whether or not the watts per channel rating is accurate or enough. There's so many variables.
There are, but
that, especially like you said with speakers, whether or not something's going to be enough to power what you have, you really just have to test it yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there is a certain amount of, everyone's going to have a varying opinion on it. And from consumers to designers, like there's different philosophies when it comes to power, which is probably why there is so much confusion about it. In an ideal like textbook world, though, there are some pretty common, I guess we can call them steadfast rules, where you can just kind of do the math real quick as to why power is still important and why 75 or 100 watts may be the new norm compared to even 20 years ago. Like when I was buying my first pair of like affordable loudspeakers, the JBL G400s, I want to say those were about 90, they were rated on paper, 92, 93 dB efficient, which in lay terms means that with 1 watt of power at a distance of 1 meter, they can produce 93 decibels of volume, which is quite a bit. Now, as you add distance, you have to add power, but also every time you want to go up 3 dB in volume, you have to double your power. So to go from 93 to 96, I would need 2 watts, but to go from 96 to 99 decibels, I would need, what was I on, 2 watts? I would need 4 watts. And then to go from 99 to 102, I need 8 watts. Now this is, I mean, still not a very difficult speaker to drive, but if we go and look at speakers now more in the modern era, ELAC, for example, where you're looking at 84, 85 dB, you're at 84, 85 dB at that 1 watt, theoretically, on paper. We're not going to do the calculations for distance, okay? Know that as you add distance, you have to also add power. But let's just stay at that kind of near field, textbook example. So that's 84 dB, or let's say, 84 dB at 1 watt. To go from 84 to 87, I need 2. To go from 87 to 90 dB, I need 4. To go from 90 to 93, I need 8. To go from 93 to 96, I now need 16. To go from 96 to 99, I need 32 watts. And to go from 99 to 102? What was I on? 32? I need 64 watts. And so now, okay, so the people that have, say, a 30 watt amplifier that want to go full Carl and have 100 dB peaks, guess what? You may clip your amp, damage your speakers, blah, blah, blah. And that's where you can mathematically sort of start to go, okay, 50 to 100 watts is probably going to become the norm. Now, that's not to say that you necessarily need that, but it's just a really simple math way on paper to look at it and go, oh, this is how we can arrive at these types of wattages and why they could become important. Because the other aspect of it is the dynamic headroom. Yes, a speaker may be percolating on 1 or 2 watts, for 90% of its life. But if something hits, like the kick drum at the bridge of the noose or an explosion in a movie, it can need all of that extra wattage in an instant, only to come back down to 2 watts. And when you have a speaker that's already 84, 85 dB at, whatever, 100 watts matters.
Well, I want to answer Afonso's question for me.
Okay.
Afonso says, "Hey, Kristi, what are your thoughts on the look on this one? I can't get over that black bar in the center."
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I mind the look of the black bar.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it doesn't really serve a purpose. It would have been a really great place for them to showcase like something like album art, if the EXA 100 had the ability to stream, but it doesn't. So I don't know. I'm not really sure I understand what Cambridge is doing here lately. I mean, and I think that is echoed by what some of our viewers are also sensing.
Yeah.
But as far as the design goes, in general,
Mm-hmm.
I really love Cambridge's design language, and I don't hate the look of it,
Mm-hmm.
but again, why is that? Why? Lots of why questions.
Lots of whys
with these products, but beyond that, I actually really enjoyed the amp and the streamer. And if you're familiar with my personal opinion about Cambridge audio sound, whether I'm going to like their amp or not. That varies pretty wildly. In the past, like the CXA line, I felt was a little boring. The Edge series, while I thought they look absolutely fabulous. Again, I'm like, you know,
So neutral.
it's just so neutral.
Yeah.
Whereas like is it the AXA, like the cheaper line?
The AX line, the AXRs specifically.
AXRs. Yeah, the AXR.
Yeah.
I thought those sounded really great, really good.
Yeah.
And I feel like this particular series has a little bit of that in it. Maybe I'm imagining things. I don't know. But that's my take.
That's your take?
That's my take.
Well, I was very curious. Because you were pretty quiet the entire time we were evaluating these. So I had no idea what you thought of them. How was it for intelligibility for you?
I thought it was fine.
Okay. Because, no tone controls, none of that. So I was like, huh.
Tio wanted to know, what about the AXA 100 versus the ROKSAN ATTESSA?
Okay. Yeah. Obviously, we didn't have the ROKSAN to compare it directly. That review came out last year, I think. Again, comparable. I think feature-wise, the EXA is going to give you a little bit more in terms of features, especially if you're a big fan of the HDMI connection. But the ROKSAN ATTESSA, if you buy the right one, basically has Blue Sound built in, so it has a streamer built in, which would negate the need for a separate box. So if you're more of a streamer-centric type listener, then the ROKSAN might make more sense and be more affordable for you compared to the Cambridge. But if you want that HDMI connectivity, there's no choice but the Cambridge. Both are very capable. I think we didn't have the Titans at the time of the ROKSAN, if memory serves. And so I can't say if a big beefy tower with lots of woofers at high volumes would maybe cause some of the spatial flattening that I experienced with the Cambridge to happen on the ROKSAN. But all in all, very comparable products.
That ROKSAN was so good.
Very good.
So
Fabulous.
good. Like it needed the HDMI.
That's, yeah.
If they come out with a new one,
Yeah.
and give you HDMI,
Yeah.
oh man, I will want that in-house to test.
Yeah.
The other one, like I just said, ARCAM. We have a couple of people in the comments asking about that. Gray Quinn says, the more I think about it, the more I like the idea of a separate streamer. Digital technologies are the ones that evolve faster, and it would be cheaper to go update something like a WIM Ultra rather than a whole integrated amp with the streamer. So I see the point of this, Cambridge. Okay. How does it compare, though, in sound quality to the ARCAM A25? C Booty, one of our regulars, also has a similar question about the A25. C Booty says, the A25 seems similarly spec'd, plus it includes a phono stage and is quite a bit cheaper.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts? I love the ARCAM.
I love that damn ARCAM so much. I'd get it over this. I would. The yellow coloring and kind of weird ass screen of the ARCAM notwithstanding, I just think that amplifier. I'm dead serious when I'm like that little A25 mad Mark Levinson vibes. I loved that thing. And if you're into that, I want my digital, my streamer, my everything to be separate. Go. Run, don't walk. Go get the ARCAM because that's probably tailor-made for you. If you want an all-inclusive situation, from what I understand, the new ARCAM SA line with the built-in streamer and
the Radia,
the DRAC and all of that, I don't know if it's out yet or if it should be imminent. If it's not out already, it should be hitting shelves soon. There you go. And it's going to be in the price point of having to buy an EXA 100 plus the EXN 100. It's going to be in that same price point, but you're going to have a lot more for your money.
Tegman too wants to know a little bit more about the RZ30, a comparison when it comes to movies. You didn't mention, they said, didn't mention how it does for shows and movies, even though I think you,
On the EXA?
I thought you did.
I mean, I kind of,
You
I don't,
casually mentioned
I
it.
casually did. I don't think I went into it as hard as I sometimes do. Because admittedly, I did do a lot more music listening with those pieces. Look, I really like the RZ30. I really do. It's mine now. That's how much I like it. It's mine now. I would get the RZ30 over something like this because it's just that much more flexible. And now that it has all of the full suite of Dirac kind of products that can be integrated into it, I mean, you can have it your way. To steal someone else's tagline, you can have it your way with the RZ30. Is it the best AVR on the market in terms of power output? No, but I don't second guess it. It's driving everything I continue to throw at it. Not that the EXA can't, but if you're going to be a 50-50 type of listener, 50% music, 50% movies, I don't feel like there's when I switched from Cambridge to the RZ30, I didn't feel like I was giving up anything. And when I would listen to the same tracks that I used to evaluate the EX line, and I listened to them through the RZ30, I was like, I never once, even on all the same speakers, I never once was like, oh, that's why the Cambridge exists. If anything, I was the opposite. I was like, oh God, this Onkyo is really good. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of Cambridge, what about, we're going to talk about their another one of their products, the CXN V2.
CXN V2. Okay.
Okay. Scott Baylor says, I'm interested in your thoughts. I bought the CXA 81 based primarily on your review.
Oh, from years ago.
Granted, you didn't rave about it much, but you described very well how it sounded, which I have come to truly enjoy. I like the new EXA line, but I'm really enjoying my system. FOMO, question mark? Maybe, but love to hear more about your thoughts on it. I have the CXN V2 as well, and it works for me.
Okay. I think it's 100% FOMO. I really do. As much as the EXA 100 was a very, very pleasurable experience for me, and I did enjoy it. And like I said in the review, the EX line are represent two products Cambridge needed to make. They needed to make them. They should have been in the product line a year ago, if not 2 years ago. So I'm glad that they exist. Are they marketed improvements sonically over what came before them? That part I'm a little bit more sort of, like feature-wise, definite upgrades. But if you don't need those upgrades, you don't need those things, I'm not 100% convinced that by going from, say, a CXA81 or a CXA81 Mark II, if you went with the Mark II and you're still okay with, not having HDMI and all of that, like, I'm not convinced that you're going to get to the EX and be like, oh, that's a way different story. AX, if you've been an AX user and you've been trying to decide, do you go to CX or do you go to EX? Now that the EX exists, if you can swing it, I'd skip right over CX. AX to EX, improvement. There's gonna be a lot of sonic and feature improvements.
I would skip the CX line.
At this juncture, yes.
And I think if your system is growing or your needs are changing, going from the AX line to the EX line is the most similar sounding amplifier for me.
Okay.
See, I don't think, and now I realize I am going off of memory.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that the CX line sounds much like this EX line. I
Okay.
think the EX line sounds more like the AX line. You feel free to debate me in the comments,
Yeah,
but those
yeah.
are my feelings.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of arrived to the same conclusion,
Yeah.
but
You
I
still,
just,
yeah, you still feel they sound a little different.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Tyler Flores. Here's another one that I think is a great alternative to go to if you decide the Cambridge's product is not for you. Tyler Flores says, I was really surprised that the ROTEL RAS-5000 got brought back into the picture. I was too, not gonna lie. Why did you miss it so much and regret sending it back after dealing with all of the all-in-one streaming apps?
Because on a lot of fronts, the ROTEL 5000 gave me a very similar personal experience as a reviewer that I kind of had, and I kind of touched upon at the top of this Unplugged, where there were a lot of things about it that frustrated me because ROTEL, Cambridge, maybe a couple other brands, they're coming to this all-in-one space late. So they have the benefit of hindsight. Like they have the benefit of looking at what everyone else who's come before them has done. And they could give you that product that solves for X, so to speak. And in my humble opinion, a lot of them decide to go like 90% of the way and then stop. And there are aspects of the ROTEL that did that for me. And I mentioned those in the review, like, why is there no phono preamp in this thing? Why are we limiting some of the input-output options? Like, great, I love the fact that you gave me HDMI, but the app is okay. You know, it's functional, but it's okay. There's not a lot of adjustability. So, you know, and so I had some of the same complaints that I have about the Cambridge EX line today. I had those way back in January with ROTEL. But the one area where the ROTEL never, ever disappointed me was sound quality and control. That thing was a beast. And, you know, now that I've been living with the Macintosh gear and I'm getting pretty just, you know, pretty intimate now with the SVS Titans and how much I just love those speakers. I'm like, oh man, like I would love a second crack at the 5000 because the 5000, while I had to point out as a reviewer, they didn't go all the way. They pulled their punches a couple of places, feature wise, flexibility wise. As far as how I live day to day, as I mentioned in that review, it's actually one of the products that kind of just jived with me the most. I mean, lack of a better way of looking at it, it's like a Dirac, and I don't think it will ever have Dirac, but it's like Dirac or some kind of automated EQ type system or bass management system away from being perfect. And that's what I want for products, because that's what I want for customers, consumers, you know, the world over. Is to quote Camera Conspiracies, all I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect amplifier. And perfect for me is not like the THD and the damping and all of this. No. It's the thing that finally gives people every opportunity to interact with their type of content in a way that makes sense for them. And it's another reason why I think AVRs are so great, is I think they get the closest. And we're a ROTEL or you know, an ARCAM away maybe from someone that has the true full bore Carl audiophile chops to finally partner up with the right tech or software side of things to make that product. You know, ROTEL had the receiver that I think is now discontinued. That was an absolute monster. It sounded so good. The problem with it was just insanely cost prohibitive. I want to say it was $5 or $7 grand. So like I said, we're just inches away from the perfect storm of elements coming together and giving us that sexy one box solution. And when that happens, oh boy. Not only is it a brave new world, but I think everyone in the manufacturing space is going to have to adapt. Like Marantz' Model M1, close. It shows you what's possible. It's unobtrusive. It's not scary to use. It's limited to 2.1. It lacks, that last emphasis on processing and room correction. But again, it's like we're tiptoeing to the finish line, and I just want one company to come out and just long jump us there.
Well, Chris B has a question for you about the NAD C700. How would you say the sound would differ if I were upgrading from a first-gen NAD C700? I did hear your comments about how it differs from NAD sound, but if you have any additional thoughts.
I think you're going to find the Cambridge to be a little less sterile and kind of precise in a good way. I meant what I said, where there are other products that compete very favorably with the Cambridge, but there's a naturalness, like an organic quality, like the edges aren't so perfectly rendered on the trailing notes of instruments and vocals that actually makes things kind of sound a little bit more real or personable in room as opposed to control room, where, someone's doing their singing, in a room that you could clap as loud as you want. You're never going to hear reverberation or anything like that. And as a result, that sort of stuff is often layered in or digitally added or manipulated. Whereas the Cambridge kind of makes it feel like even recordings that I know were done that way in a vocal booth and all of this, and the mix put all the elements together. The Cambridge makes it sound a little bit closer or similar to mixes where I know, like, no, they were all in the room together when this was played, and you can kind of start to hear that interaction in other people's mics. A great album to experience kind of what I'm talking about, or a couple albums to experience kind of what I'm talking about. MTV's Unplugged Nirvana, MTV Unplugged Alanis Morissette are fabulous examples of how there's just that little hint of bleed into other instruments and whatnot. Everyone's still very nicely rendered and composed and all of this, but you get a truer sense of the physical space they're all occupying that, studio recordings don't have. But the Cambridge isn't so precise with its rendering that I feel like studio albums can have an element of like the Unplugged.
I really liked the NAD C700 product.
Yeah, I'm not poo-pooing it.
Oh, I know you're not. I recall really liking it.
Yeah, it was a nice piece.
The C700 along with the NAD T778 AVR.
Oh yeah.
Both were products from NAD that I felt kind of backed off the sterile quality just a little bit for me. Definitely nothing like how clean the M33 NAD is.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of a difference there, Chris. But yeah, I think that Andrew's right that you will have a little bit more of maybe what I would call an organic sound. If you were to go with the Cambridge, there's so many good options out there.
Yeah.
But if you're okay with what you have, I'm not sure I would upgrade.
Yeah.
We have one last comparison.
Okay.
That I think is another integrated that I really love. Ben McCarthy wants to know about the Anthem STR as a value comparison in this part of the market.
The STR lacks HDMI, and obviously it doesn't have streaming built in. So you would still have to add something like a WIM, to get that. But sound-wise, that SDR rips.
It's $5,000.
Okay, so it is a little bit more money. I would get the STR, personally. I would.
Plus, it has ARC.
It has ARC. It has
they...
room correction. Terrific bass management. I would get the STR. I know it's $1,000 more money, and it lacks HDMI. It lacks streaming, but it's a darn good product.
I think if you can get an STR on the used market for like a really great deal, pick one up.
Yeah.
If not, wait.
Well, there's
because
that
this is
too.
an older product.
Oh, God,
there's
yeah.
no way they're not updating this soon.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I've heard.
No, we don't know anything, but I think the STR is 7 years old at this juncture.
Here's the thing. We've been reviewing products on this channel for enough time now.
Yeah.
We can read the tea leaves about a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I would expect a new version or a replacement or something.
And the other thing, don't overlook Anthem's receivers. You're still not going to have streaming, but you're going to have everything but that, in which case, maybe you stream from an Apple TV that's plugged into your television, because their receivers are very capable too and would be comparably priced.
That's true. That's true. I know that our Anthem contact often watches these Unplugged. So if you're listening, do not come to market with an STR update without streaming.
Or HDMI. Yeah.
For the love of God.
Yeah.
You've been warned.
You've been warned.
You come to market without that.
It's on. It's on.
Yeah. Don't expect to escape the wrath of the Robinsons. Anyway, we're done.
We're done?
Yeah, unless you have anything else to add.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I've said everything. So I'm glad the EX line is out there. As frustrated as I was by its announcement, better late than never. They are good products. They are, but they needed to make these. Super glad they made them.
You're over-explaining.
Super happy with them. But
the people are going to be like, that guy Robinson, he's just making sure he can get the next one.
Oh, God. Yeah.
You're right.
You're right.
You're right.
You're right.
We're on the payroll of everyone.
Yep.
Your suspicions.
We got to get out of here because the
confirmed.
Brinks truck is backing up with all of my brand money. Jeez. Anywho.
We kid.
Obviously,
but anyway,
yeah.
let's just
call it.
See you on the next one.
Yeah. See you Sunday. Brand new video. Really looking forward to it. So till then, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.